divide whatever you need to study in chunks. Think for yourself, how much best time can you concentrate? 80% of your time you spend in reading, 20% of your time you spend in testing yourself. The second technique is what we call SQ3R method. So this method stands for survey. So when you open a chapter just before the exam, quickly survey what are the headings. Then what you do is, as you read one paragraph, you make questions from that paragraph. Then read it. If you're not able to answer, recite it and review it.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Health for You. I am Chetna Belgire in conversation with a very special guest, Dr. Preethi Galgali. Dr. Galgali is a leading pediatrician and also deals with adolescent health. So she is the one who's navigated several parents and teenagers and adolescents through their lives. Let's talk to her today on a very, very important topic, which is very timely as well. It is about the stress and exams. So you could say it as exam stress. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts and some tips probably on how to remember. And for parents, at least I think we need some tips on how do you navigate our child through this exam phase and why it is very important to do that. Welcome to our show, Dr. Galgali.
Thank you so much, Chetna. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Preethi. So my first question usually to any guest is, if you were not a doctor, what would you be?
A teacher.
Oh, that's really nice. So anything to do with children. So this is
Absolutely.
also something.
Absolutely. I just enjoy being with children.
How come, is it been like this from your childhood days or?
Absolutely, right from the childhood. Younger the better. But now, as when I was training as a pediatrician, but then I realized there's so much fun talking to adolescents, getting to know them, and getting to listen to them and learn from them. So it now spans the entire age group from, I would say, from 0 to 24.
That's fantastic. That's
Yes.
really nice to know that you wanted to be a teacher. Otherwise, you would have been a teacher. So let's go back to your childhood days. What was exams for you like, and was it stressful for you?
Oh, well, yes, they were stressful for me. My mother wanted me to always top the class. So you can say the parental expectations can really push you down, but also pull you up to perform to your potential. So it is actually a two-edged sword. I would say that.
So when we say that children are stressed, they're really stressed then. And
yes. So in fact, stress is a way of life. It's how you manage it. Whether you stress and that brings out the best in you, or whether you're in distress that really puts you down, both mentally and physically.
that's very interesting. That's an interesting thing. Now, me being a parent myself, I just wanted to, I'm curious to know whether, if there's any biological change that happens that actually brings in stress. Like, people, we don't look at that, exams is stressing children out until they're of a certain age. And then we start noticing that, okay, there is some kind of stress building in both parents as well as children. So is there any biological aspect to this at all? The age also.
Okay, yes. So it is actually how much emphasis you give on the marks is what really determines it, I would say. If you could consider exams as a celebration of learning, as a festival, a joyful thing, then there would probably be no distress. Right? So that is an important aspect. And when you talk about age, so what happens is, especially in the adolescent age group, between like starting onwards from 10 years onwards, there are changes in the brain which take place. There is a high emotional reactivity. There is also the development of the reward center. So the adolescents are high on emotions and they seek rewards. And an adolescent who is only judged, I would say, like most people do, on the basis of their marks, and that is considered the only marker of the self-esteem of the adolescent can be, and if the adolescent is not doing well in studies, can feel very, very down and very, very sad.
Okay.
So we often say that you not only encourage academic pursuits, but also the extra academic pursuits like music, dance, sports, which gives them the so-called dopamine kick. And this is more so because the control of their emotions and the sensation of control of rewards is actually seated in the prefrontal cortex, which is right in the front of the brain, which matures only in the late 20s.
Oh my God.
And also there's something which we call, in the medical terms, the hypothalamic pituitary axis and adrenal axis, which determines the stress response. It is immature in the adolescent period. And in fact, whenever the adolescent is under stress, there's a storm, a hormonal storm of excess hormones which take place. And if we do not teach them adequate stress management techniques, this could just, boil over.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that is so almost 12% of the suicides which occur in the adolescents are due to scholastic issues, academic performance,
True.
stress, exam of stress, as you said.
Right. So no, this is very interesting because for us, when we look at all of these things, the biological, like you said, the adolescent brain, the part of the brain develops only at the age of 21 when you're actually making a decision and frontal lobe
Yes.
is there. So now, unfortunately, you need to prove yourself by then, right? So there is so much stress already that is built in, and like you said, adolescents we're talking about is probably because they start taking marks very seriously from class 8 onwards. So, considering this, what is actually going on in a child's mind if you to look at emotional, if you can put it out in an emotional, the challenges that they're going through at that time when they're stressed, especially for exams. So,
Yes.
what is going on
So
in them?
I would also say that adolescent, there are a lot of changes taking place in the biopsychosocial domains.
Correct.
So it's not only psychological, it's also biological. There are a lot of
Yes.
body changes which are taking place. The changes in height, the changes in weight, acne coming there, periods starting.
Hundreds of problems going on.
Yes. So so these are, as we say, stress is a challenge to an internal homeostasis, an internal balance. So something which happens out of routine is something which causes us stress, and how do we really manage our internal balance is important. So adolescent is undergoing all these changes. On top of that is the parental expectations, and on top of that is a certain behavior which is expected. Oh, now you're grown up enough, you should be able to manage. Not parents and even teachers don't often realize that they're still immature. They need the support of at least one, as we say, non-judgmental, trustworthy adults in their life to support them and to help them cope up with all these innumerable changes. And there's also media in the picture now. So media itself puts a lot of stress, not only how they look, how they behave, how they act, and even their marks. And people who talk, their photographs are splashed all over. So all these are very stressful periods for the adolescent, and especially with an immature brain, they do need the support of people around them, especially their parents, their teachers, the teachers which are there, and also I think the whole community.
Yeah, poor children, they're going through so much already and there's so much pressure which you're putting on. So when it comes to parental, the way you recognize your child's stress, or is there like a pattern that the child would follow? Because see, I wouldn't generalize and say all children are stressed about
Not
exams,
at all.
right?
Yes.
Some people really need it and some people probably love it. They like taking exams,
Yes.
they like doing all of these things,
Yes.
irrespective of whether they're doing it for marks or whether they're doing it to please somebody or just want for themselves, but they are at it. So how do you as a parent recognize that your child is actually being stressed over something, or it is just the nervousness of whatever it is going around them? How do you recognize that?
Yes, so when we talk about mental well-being, we say it's over a continuum. So there will be people who are totally balanced, totally cool about it. They're undergoing their daily activities with that same sense of joy and happiness. But there's some who get a little, like you said, distressed about it. So there may be signs of irritability, signs of anger, and I must also say in the adolescent age group, sadness can sometimes manifest not as tears, but as episodes of anger and irritability. So if your child has always been the happy-go-lucky types and they suddenly see losing their temper too often, suddenly getting withdrawn from the people around, suddenly losing interest. So suppose they were always enjoying the television, for example, and they say, I don't even want to look at the television. I don't even want to talk to my friends. So what we say is a change in mood, behavior, or loss of interest in activities previously enjoyed, lasting for more than 2 weeks on most days of the week, which is affecting their functioning. So, for example, scoring even average marks have now started failing. enjoying the friends, now saying not, I'm not going to the friends. Coming to you, sitting with you, talking with you, having family meals, and not having that now. So there's a functional impairment with the loss of interest in activities previously enjoyed and a change in mood. And of course, if you see signs of violence, which were not there before, signs of self-harm, like sometimes cutting episodes which are occurring, sometimes due to coping up with the stress becomes so much, and to cope up with it, they cut or harm themselves. Or if you feel that they're taking drugs. Yes, so these are again signs to watch out for, and say the child is in excessive mental distress and said, okay, I don't even have a bath. I don't even want to eat a meal. So the activities of daily living are also affected. So these are some.
Are there any, I mean, you're a pediatrician
Yes.
as well, so are there any physical changes that you can see when the child is stressed or, overwhelmed with something? So can you see that as well, like any other way of identifying it? It could be very mild, but then,
Yes.
you
Yes,
do you
yes.
see that?
So like I said, not eating, looking gloomy, looking very angry. But on the other hand, there can also be something extreme like panic attacks, and what we say. So whenever there is an exam announced or a preparation of an exam or going for an exam, suddenly there's that feeling of gloom and doom.
Okay.
Yeah, that could manifest as intense headaches, intense stomach ache, even fainting episodes, sudden trembling, shaking. Yes, so we often say we have to rule out other medical disorders as well. It could be, like we say, hyperthyroidism. It could be even anemia. It could be hypothyroidism. Of course, we need to rule out. So these are some of the flag marks, and if all this is ruled out, then we say it's probably due to distress.
Okay, okay. I also want to know if, what normally happens is, the parents especially come up and say, my child is not focused. I mean,
Yes.
you keep telling the child also, stay focused, stay
Yes.
focused. So one is there anything like that where the child needs to focus, of course they need to for that exam. Then also, are there any tips to or ways to teach the child on how to focus on certain things?
Yes, so that's a very common question which is asked by parents in the clinic also. So, focus. Now, we often ask them, since when is this problem regarding focus? Is it something which has developed now in the last couple of days, or has it always been there? So, there's also a neurodevelopmental disorder which goes by the term attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, where there's a loss of attention. So, this would be detected much more earlier in the younger age groups, and it has to be managed separately. Now, if it's something which is coming now, we often say whether it's a problem of focus in what subject, for what subject, or is it a kind of a loss of focus overall?
Okay.
Right? Again, I'll come back to a very simple thing like anemia, that is less hemoglobin in the body because of an iron deficient diet, or a diet which is deficient in folic acid and vitamin B12. That itself can cause fatigue and loss of focus. Right? So I would say parents to parents, so if your child has really been doing well before and has had no difficulty in focus, has suddenly a loss of focus, it's best to go to a pediatrician and analyze whether there's some physical disorder, whether there is something mental distress or a mental disorder setting in. Now, coming back to, suppose for some time we assume that there is no physical disorder and there is no mental disorder, and just maybe because of exam stress or maybe the study stress itself, they're not able to focus. So then we have some tips for them, So we say, try to set aside a niche, a special niche to study. So for example, you study on a table and a desk. Right? So now you know that when I sit on this chair and the desk is in front, this is my place to study. Now you sit on a sofa, your mind goes into a relaxation mode. Right? But yes, so it's very important to set the tone, right? Not to say that some people don't study well on the sofa. So I'm kind of saying people who are having a problem are sitting on the sofa and studying. Maybe sitting on a chair may be a better idea. So that is one thing. Even sitting on the floor sometimes, that's also quite okay if that's the place where you feel you can focus the best. That's one. Second thing is, stay away from distractions. And in the present era, the phone. The phone is a big distraction unless you're using your phone or the study material for study. Okay, but at that time I would recommend that put off your Wi-Fi, download that material. Yes, and just focus on the study material rather than going on for cyber loafing, like you're studying and then you're playing some games.
Correct.
You know,
Yes.
so that itself can be a distraction. And if you can study without the phone, nothing like that. Keep the phone away. So that is important. Then the third thing is that you could divide whatever you need to study in chunks. So don't sit down and say, okay, now I'm going to study the whole of physics today. When you sit down to study, think for yourself how much best time can you concentrate. And scientists have said that not more than 90 minutes. 90 minutes is max for one, block of studies. Yes. Usually people focus well for 50 minutes. And that's why, if you see most of the periods in the school are around 45 to 50. So that is a more reasonable thing. And there's some people who only can focus for 30 minutes. So check out how well can you maintain your focus and say, okay, I'm going to read 5 pages of this physics chapter now, and I'm not going to get up till I finish this. So that will help you to focus and not get overwhelmed by the amount of portion that is there. Another thing which helps to focus, I often say this, 80% of your time you spend in reading, 20% of your time you spend in testing yourself. So suppose 5 pages, and I finish reading the 5 pages, and then I read or try to answer questions related to that. And what I'm not able to answer, I go back. So don't read like a storybook. Read to remember.
Okay.
So these are some things which help to build up, focus and concentration. And most important, I always say, enjoy what you do.
So, you said this interesting thing about the attention,
Yes.
focus, attention span, which is like, let's assume that it's about 45 minutes.
Yes.
But then we need to maybe finish off certain portions.
Yes.
So, is there any trick or anything of that sort? Like 45 minutes you read this, then you take a break, come back to the same thing again. So, is there anything which they can do, like a quick thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what's often said that what you remember in the you remember the most in the initial, the study time period and the end. And so if you can make those shorter periods, then maybe you remember more. And you definitely take a 10-minute gap, as we say. And that gap, just don't focus on anything. Just don't think.
So that gap cannot be, I'll go to my mobile quickly. And
yeah, exactly. So what is the preferred way? I'm telling you, of course there are people who say, okay, I'll take a short break and come back. But, they often say, okay, I'm going to see TV. But, TV serials often extend to 30 to 45 minutes. So there's no coming back. So even if you want to take a 10-minute short break, so I would probably recommend do a little bit of skipping, fast walking. Right? Because exercise is supposed to pump more blood into the memory system. And also exercise produces what we call brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps in the proliferation of neurons. So exercise not only for physical fitness, but for mental fitness, improving your memory as well. Right?
Even adults can do that.
Of course. Of course. So that's a good way. And endorphins, the feel-good hormones, will make you study better. So yes, take those breaks, but remember those breaks are 10 minutes or 15 minutes and you need to come back. That's very, very important. Often, people say, I take a break and I don't come back.
Yeah.
Then the point of it is lost.
Actually, my next question was on the memory. Like,
yes.
Are there any memory tricks? Like, most of the parents who, there's another common question that they probably would come up is, my child is forgetting whatever he or she is studying,
Yes.
There are two things. One is not remembering at all at any given situation. Like, the child has studied and then now can't remember. The other thing is blanking out during the actual exam.
Yes.
So if you could address both of these.
Yes.
So and some tips to actually overcome this.
Right. So memory, So memory is not only about studying well and studying with, efficiently, but it's also about what you eat. Like I come back again to the iron rich diet which I was talking about, to making sure that you have a balanced food which is rich in all the nutrients, including the micronutrients. So diet has a big role in developing memory. And I must also say here, even healthy fats are important because fats form a part of the myelin sheath. Myelin sheath is the covering of the neurons which are there in the brain, the nerve cells. So we often say omega-3 fatty acids. And these are found in fish oil. These are also found in walnuts, germinated food. So all these are important sources which should not be, really compromised on. So all the nutrients, the proteins, the carbohydrates, all are equally important. So one is diet. The second, as I already said, physical activity. Extremely important, especially in the adolescent age group. They need to have this, as I said, dopamine kick, the healthy reward from exercise, and as I said, it improves memory as well. The third important thing is sleep. Sleep is an excellent way to consolidate your memory. So there should not be any compromise on sleep. 8 to 9 hours is what we recommend even in exam time.
Okay. Yeah, that's another mistake
Yes.
which many people, I think many
Yes.
children do this mistake.
Yes.
Up to, I've seen a lot of my own relatives' children who stay awake the whole night. They study till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the
Yes.
morning, and then they go into the exam.
Yes.
You're suggesting that it's a very bad idea.
Yes, it's a very bad idea, because what happens, not only the sleep helps in consolidation, it is like recharging your batteries. Like imagine if your phone is totally drained all the time, it won't work. So similarly with our body, So then that itself puts us into a mental distress if we don't have adequate sleep. Right? So these are the three very, very key points as far as memory is concerned. Then the next is, how do you really develop your memory to remember? Learn to remember is what we say. One of the things which I said was test yourself.
Yes.
That is one technique. The second technique is what we call SQ3R method. So this method stands for survey. So when you open a chapter just before the exam, quickly survey what are the headings. What are the pictures? Sometimes you get even pictures in the MCQs especially. What are the pictures? What is the summary? So you have a survey. Then what you do is, as you read one paragraph, you make questions from that paragraph.
You yourself
make. You can have a separate notebook. So just one, don't shift to the next paragraph unless you're able to answer questions or made by yourself. So there are some things which are put in with the questions are there in the last, the exercise part of the chapter. But here you're making your own questions, because many in higher classes, many of the questions come from within the textbook. So you should be ready with that set of questions. Then read it. If you're not able to answer, recite it and review it. So SQ3R, survey, questions, read, recite, review. This method does not hold good for English, because English again is more like a story, and also not for mathematics, because mathematics you need to work out sums, which is so very important. This is one of the techniques. The second is a flashcard. So all the important points which you feel, especially I would say dates of history. History dates are extremely important, difficult to remember. So from a particular chapter, if you can put out all the dates in one flashcard, what we say, maybe a kg cardboard paper, and you put the chapter's name and you put that, the trigonometry formulas, the physics formula, the chemistry equations. If you have a flashcard ready, just before the exam, you can glance through that. The third technique is a mind map. So mind map, you make various association. For example, what are the different types of vitamins? Water soluble and fat soluble. What are the water soluble vitamins? What are the sources? What will happen if there's a deficiency? So you can either draw, if you like that, or you make associations in your brain. So okay, so these are the two divisions as we make those tables and the flow charts, and we remember it, and we can even stick it up on the wall. When you're combing your hair, going up and down, just the photograph flashes in your mind. So these are some techniques, which any child could use, and you can see which suits you the best. If you like to make mind maps, use it.
Yeah.
If you like flashcards, use that. If you like SQ3R, if you want to use everything together, use a combination. We say there are three types of memories. One is sensory memory, like what I'm speaking to you right now. Now, whatever I'm speaking to you, if you don't go back home and revise it, or you start using what I'm telling you, it will just evaporate in 24 hours. Yes. Short-term memory is something which we mug up just before exams without remembering.
Correct.
And that is a very short span, 24 to 48 hours. Long-term memory is when we have really understood.
Okay.
And then when we have used these techniques, and often we have challenged ourselves, in the sense, okay, I read this yesterday, can I remember some of it today? So maybe challenging yourself after a day, even better after a week. So you not only revise that, but you also know what you understood, what you did not. And as you do this again and again, the neuronal connections become more and more stronger, and you remember for life.
That's excellent advice. I think this
Yes.
is really a wish I knew it when I was in college or school. No, but another question is, these days, considering that phone is there with us all
Yes.
the time, many children have developed this. They think that okay, you play the music in the background and study. I can do that. The first question they say is, "Can I play music and still study?" So is that allowed? I mean, is it okay to do that? Is one thing. Another thing is, some people, like you said about the sensory and the visual memory. Is there something of the types where they can record it and then play it? So does that help? So these two things, if we could answer, where you
Yes.
have a gadget and device.
Yes. So that's again a great question. It's a very personal or individualized choice, I would say. Suppose you feel you read better with music. What you're doing here is you are trying to silence the background noise. So there's a lot of traffic where you're studying, or the people who are making a lot of noise, right? And you put the music on, you're silencing that background noise, and you also feel, oh, I'm able to focus better.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're listening to the lyrics,
It could happen.
Which could happen. And you're trying to sing along. Then you're paying more attention to the music.
Physics going on, and there is
Yes.
another kind of chemistry coming in from there.
Yeah.
Your biological side is
Absolutely.
destroyed.
So that could be an issue.
Yeah.
Now you also asked me an interesting question. Yes, there are different type of learners. Some are visual learners. I look at it and I can. Some are auditory learners who need to speak and learn.
Say it out loud.
Loud, yeah. And the third type is the kinesthetic. They want to do it. So usually we'll say use all the modes. Use a mixture, but see what you are predominant. So sometimes parents say don't read out aloud. You'll get tired. Some people says read out loud.
Yeah.
So you see what suits you the best. I'll come back to the question which you asked me initially. They're blank out before exams.
Right, yeah.
So what happens, as I told you about the limbic system or the emotional center in the brain, the emotions are on a high. So when the emotions are on a high, they tend to block out the memory system.
Okay.
So then, even if you have read very, very well, because of intense anxiety, what will happen if I don't do well? What will my parents say? What will my teachers? Consequence of that. You're going into the future, instead of focusing and being there in the present. And you go into that kind of a thinking which is doom and gloom and intense, high on emotions, high stress hormones. So actually stress hormones help us to overcome stress. But overdose of stress hormones can again impair the memory center. So that's the time when you need to take a break from those. You're going into a catastrophizing, kind of a state. So what do you need to do then as something like this happens? So you need to break that cycle of going into the future and stay in the present. So we have a technique which we call use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Okay. So that technique is when you feel that you're getting totally kind of zooming, you can't remember. So one of the techniques which you can do is just look around you and say 5 things that I can see.
Okay, you name the 5 things.
You name the 5 things in your mind.
Like there's a desk, there's a table, there's a chair.
So
yeah,
like that. A pencil, a pen, a paper. So 5 things that you can see. 4 things that you can touch.
Okay.
Yourself, the pen, the paper, the table, the chair. 4 things that you can touch. Then 3 things that you can feel.
Okay.
Touch, I said. Sorry, 3 things that you can hear. Okay. So
right now we are hearing the clock.
Yeah. So what you're trying to do is to use your senses.
Okay.
All the 5 senses you can use. One thing which you can taste, and the thing that could be your own saliva.
Very interesting. Okay.
So if you can use your 5 senses at that time, and other 2 things which you can smell. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you can use your 5 senses, what you're doing is you are kind of distracting yourself from a thing which is causing you emotional turmoil. You're trying to stay grounded. We call this a grounding exercise.
Okay.
And it really works wonders, especially for those people who get panic attacks.
Fantastic. This is really
very, very effective. Another good thing which you can do is clench your fist tightly. And just take a break from what question you got stuck at. And we often say when you get stuck at something, jog your memory, provided you have read that before. If you've not read that before, it's not going to
There's
come
no
back.
way it's
It's going to come. So if you get stuck there, clench your fist and say, all the tension is in my fist. And just close your eyes for a second and then say, chill, relax, cool. Okay, that is one way to do. It's again, distracts you, then gets you back, gets your stress hormones, or what we ideally say, it gets our parasympathetic nervous system or relaxation system into action.
Okay.
Another thing which you can do is a deep breathing or an abdominal breathing. We often breathe from our chest. So we say keep one hand on the chest, keep one hand on the abdomen, and try to empty your abdomen as if you're emptying a balloon. Take out, exhale, long exhale, and then a deep inhale so that your abdomen moves out or bulges out.
So you're taking a deep breath.
Yeah. So now you're doing your chest. That's not done. You have to hold your chest, and that's
Okay.
You have to hold
it like that.
Yeah. Your abdomen, not your chest.
Oh, okay.
Your abdomen.
So it's like completely inside.
Yeah, this abdominal belly breathing so that your diaphragm gets pulled down. There is more oxygen going into your lungs, and in the diaphragm there is a nerve which is called the vagus nerve, which is a relaxation nerve. So you are stimulating that.
Oh my God, this is so fantastic. I think this is for adults as well.
Yes, definitely.
Whenever you have a panic attack, whenever you're stressed,
Yes.
please do this abdominal breathing. Though I didn't get it right, I'm sure if we keep practicing it.
Absolutely. So in a traffic situation also,
Yes.
when you feel like going to a road rage, do this. Concentrate on your breath. Do your, even go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, so that you could kind of when you're you're in a very in a big traffic jam, you can use this.
Much
Cool
needed,
yourself.
much
Yes.
needed, yeah.
So for all kinds of stress response.
Yeah, and one more thing is, like now we're talking about that is the stress which is there, but then like a preparation. Now, suppose somebody has say about 1 or 2 months, still for their exams to go. Can parents actually sit with the child, schedule something so that it makes it easier, or do we allow the child, himself or herself to do it? How does it work? I mean, will it help if parents get involved in this?
Absolutely, it definitely helps. Even if you're not helping the child with the scheduling, just asking the child, is everything okay? Right? That's a very important question to ask the child. Yes, it may be the child is doing great, but actually is feeling stressed out. And that's a good way of, are you okay? I know your exams are coming. Can I help in any way? How are things? So that's a good question to ask. And even if you feel the child is doing very well. So there are some children who can manage themselves very well. As I was talking about the prefrontal cortex, I also want to say time management is in the prefrontal cortex. And we often tell adolescents, you never are able to manage the time. Actually, they are not developmentally ready. But we must also understand that the brain is under construction in this period. So if we teach them good time management skills, for that matter, any life skills and even stress management skills, the neuronal connections are such that you can mold the brain in a way that they develop excellent skills which track into adulthood. So time management, they're a little weak on that, but yes, you can definitely teach them, and that is an extremely important skill to learn, and especially in this era of mobile phones. How much time are you really going to spend on the mobile after you have, kind of scheduled your time? How much time do you spend in grooming, in eating, in going to school, in my hobbies, in helping my parents, in my meals with my parents? How much time? And that time, that's left time, is the study time. And we often say divide the study time into daily studies, daily revisions. So when you're saying just before the exam, I would say be organized right from the beginning of the academic session.
Yes,
That would be the best thing to do. Regular studies, time for homework, and extra reading. That will be the way to, split it up and leave adequate time for physical activity. For adolescents, we recommend at least 60 minutes, even for the younger children. We want them to play at least minimum for 1 hour outdoors. That would be excellent, and your 8 hours of sleep.
So if we're talking about time management during exams, like or just before exams, like few weeks before exams. So another doubt which parents normally have is, do we allow them to even have that 1 hour of suppose somebody has a nowadays you have these rules which are setting in most households where you say that half an hour of screen time or half an hour of play time. So do we, like, normally what happens is they curb everything, like because it's exams now you can't do any of this. So do they allow them to go ahead and do it, or do they actually stop this completely?
So like I said, if you're starting right from the beginning, there's no reason why you should not be able to continue with your routine.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, so that would be
That's
really
the
a,
best thing
a
to
best thing to do. But if at all you want to curb a bit, so I say 1 hour of physical activity, maybe half an hour, but don't stop it totally.
Okay.
So I would definitely not recommend that. Suppose a child goes for say music classes, going for an hour, doing practice 15 to 20 minutes. It's an excellent stress buster. So all these can be stress busters for the child and should be encouraged. Should be, because like we always say, all work and no play, make Jack and Jill both adult boy and adult girl.
Yeah.
So I think we need to follow that and keep that perspective.
Mobile and TV?
I said, a mobile while studying, definitely a distraction. Mobile for recreation for some time, and that too, which is monitored, would be the best way. And if the parents can do co-viewing, that is nothing better than that. So again, making it reasonable. I know our older adults don't want to, kind of sit with their parents and see, but whatever it is, they should not, like you said rightly, half an hour is a reasonable time. And if you can make this kind of timetable, I say, with the adolescent, that would be excellent. On a routine school day, I would say make daily timetables, because next day there may be a test, there may be a project submission, there may be a homework to be done, there may be a dance practice. So sit down and see how many hours are there after the school and what is the priority for the next day, and then make a timetable. Don't make it a universal timetable, because all days are different. That doesn't work. All days
Nowadays you get online, timetable that will work to score 100 out of 100 things. Like
not
that.
at all. It's not going to work. It has to be a daily timetable. Yes.
Okay. I had another question on procrastination. So what normally happens is, in a household, if you say come sit and study, you would have fixed a timetable, everything is done, 2 o'clock you're supposed to be sitting to study. But the child is like saying 10 minutes I'll come, 5 minutes I'll come, irrespective of what the child is doing, but they just don't start studying. So one is, what do you do at that situation? And another thing is, any tip for parents particularly to make sure that the child is sitting to do whatever it's supposed to do?
So I would say some habits are imbibed right in early childhood. So, we tell the child to have a bath, brush your teeth, So as they grow older, we don't need to remind them, actually. They just do it on their own. So if you can set up a routine when there is some, maybe in the younger years, reading time. This is the time when, you sit down and read something. Maybe starting with reading a storybook. So the child knows that this is my study time. And the second is the motivation. What is in it for me? Why should I do this? So it's very important to discuss with the child that why are we really studying? For what? What are your goals in life? It's irrespective. People often say, my child wanted to become this, but really became something else. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. The goals may change. The goalpost may change. But it's a good idea to have short-term goals and long-term goals. Why is studying important for me? Do I get the joy in learning? And then appreciating them.
Do you even understand the longer goal? Like my question always is, somebody wants to be a doctor. Okay, the child is saying, I want to be a doctor. But very rarely that the child, even before reaching the MBBS, the child has to actually clear 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th.
Yes.
So how important is for the parents to actually tell this to the child, to bring that, this is what you probably mean by shorter goals, right?
No, those would be the long-term goals. Like becoming a doctor would be
becoming a doctor is a long-term goal.
Yes.
But clearing your 8th, 9th, 10th in a particular way.
Yes.
Is that what you mean by shorter goals?
Yes, that's what I mean. Or maybe an ultra short goal would be to getting prepared for the test tomorrow, getting prepared for the lesson.
Yeah,
so you read this lesson. Let me ask you a question. Can you teach me this lesson? Sometimes, and children love to teach, and especially if they are parents, people in authority. So right from the beginning, if you can develop a joy in learning, for example, friction. So if you don't apply grease, this is how the chair is going to squeak, or this is how the machine is going to squeak. And if you can tell them, then you tell about the laws of friction and all, then it would make a lot of sense to the child. So that kind of joy of learning, if it can be instilled right from the beginning, and also understanding what is its significance in our daily life. Sometimes we're not able to tell. For example, history. But it's good to know about what happened so that we don't make the mistakes which our forefathers make. So things like that, when they come up with these questions and telling that, there is a lot of benefit by studying, it would not be a problem actually.
Okay.
Yes, and procrastination, as you said, sometimes develops. So when they don't like all the subjects, they find the subject very, very boring. So then again, you have to tell them, give them this concept that you may not get everything that you want in life. And it's not necessary that you will get things which you like always. And sometimes you have to cope. And you have to cope with the subject because you have to pass. I'm not saying study with a smile, but please don't study with a frown if you don't like the subject. So that kind of concept can also be given, what difficulty they are having, if you can help them out again. So it's again a very, very personalized thing. A child may be having a difficulty in one subject. So why is he having difficulty? What is the difficulty? So if you can help them out. And I have many children who procrastinate because they have a learning disability, which is missed in the younger age groups, like something like spelling mistakes, a mistake in preposition use, which is right there, right from the beginning, a difficulty in saying rhymes, right? This was there in the younger age group, which was missed. As they grow up, they make a lot of spelling mistakes, though they can understand everything. And that really has a lot of implication on the marks. So if there's something like that which is there, it requires an assessment by psychologists and what we call a remedial education. And same goes for ADHD, also for another neurodevelopmental disorder like autism. So we need to, kind of think, why is the child procrastinating?
Okay.
Need to have a one-on-one conversation and then deal with the issue.
And I also want to know, is there any time limit that you allow the child to study? Like you said, it depends on the child's concentration. Or is there any fixed time that this much of time is good for the child to actually sit and study, and does that completely depend on a personal level?
Yeah, I don't think there are any, time limits given anywhere, how much you need to study. So it is also like, seeing how comfortable the child is after sitting. Like I said, again, leaving time for sleep is important, for physical activity, interaction with friends is important, interaction with the family is important. The remaining time can be used for studies. And there is joy in that. Child is comfortable with it, is enjoying the study, but there's no need to kind of limit it, provided all other activities are given adequate time.
Okay. When coming to subject specific, maths is something which everybody dreads. So majority of them, I would say nowadays children are really fond of maths also. But is there any particular way to you've spoken about the other techniques, but
Yes.
for math particularly, is there anything which they can do? Or is it a different skill altogether?
No, not really. Not really. So as again I say, as we often say, it depends a lot on the teacher.
Oh, yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So teachers have when we're talking about study and academics, I cannot, underestimate the power that a teacher has. The teacher, not only as a teacher per se, but the teacher as a counselor, a teacher as a supporter also plays a big role. So if the teacher is great, the teacher is explaining concepts very well, the teacher is making them do some sums, which she explains really, really well, and also giving them some homework to do, and also being open to their questions. Not saying, I already taught you, why are you coming back to me again? So that kind of a teacher with an open, flexible attitude is actually not only for maths, but for any subject for that matter. And there should be no hesitation on the part of the student to go back and ask, the concepts. So again, as parents being in touch with child, are you having a problem in maths? And kind of catching the problem and nipping the problem in the bud right in the beginning. If there's a problem in trigonometry, if there's a problem in calculus, let's help them out. Either from the teacher or take some extra help. That would be important rather than waiting till the exam and then, saying, I don't understand this at all. And practice, there's no shortcut in maths. You need to practice. So often children, who have difficulty in maths, I say, when you start your study time, when you are the most fresh, don't push maths till the end because you don't like it, because then you'll be too exhausted to do it. So the first 15 minutes, just do a couple of sums. Just 15 minutes. Start with 15. Every week, try to increase by 5 minutes.
Okay.
So that would be again,
That's a good tip,
yes,
I guess, yeah.
yes.
And that reminds me, can we mix the subjects and learn? Will children be able to remember it? Like suppose somebody wants to do physics, math and chemistry all together on the same day, like probably chunk it into different times, phase and do it. So is that okay to do that way?
Yes.
Can children manage it better?
Yes, they could do it. And again, it depends on how are they feeling after it.
Okay.
Some children say, no, I want to devote one full day to only
one subject.
Only one. So again, it's very kind of a personalized thing. And yes, in fact, a mix of subjects. And as I said, keep the easier subjects which you like a lot for the end of your study time. So that would be easy.
I have some rapid fire questions.
Yes.
Normally what I do is it's very personal questions, but this time I think because we have got a lot of questions from parents who still want to ask me, I have no choice but give you those questions.
Okay.
But the first thing is, what's the funniest or most surprising thing a child has ever told you about their exam worries? The funniest one.
The funniest thing?
Yeah.
It was so easy.
So they'll come back and say,
yes, it was so easy. It was just so plain easy. I never felt I was taking an exam.
That's nice. But if you could describe exam stress in one word from a child's perspective, what would it be?
Expectations.
Right. I think that is very, very. That's the predominant.
Yes.
Mind, right?
That's and see. So if there are appropriate expectations, that's fine. If there are over expectations, you all know stress. But I must also tell you this incident of under expectations. So I had this child who was showing all signs of depression, and I started talking to this child, and he told me, "Yes, doctor, I'm preparing for IIT entrance." And can you believe it, doctor? My parents say it's okay if you don't get into IIT. It's okay if you don't do well. My parents don't even have this much of expectation from me. And that is really, really very, very depressing. So that's why I said appropriate expectation. This was a child, he said everybody's parents are telling him to do well, to go. And my parents said, it's okay. Yes. So you have to kind of be in sync with your child and understand your child.
Actually, the next question is something very similar to this. It says, what's one thing every child should be told before an exam?
Told me. Okay,
should be told. Let's do both. Let's do what should be told and what should not be told. Because there's a lot which we tell.
Yes.
But very few which actually probably is good for the child. One is all the best, maybe that's the only thing which is But other than that, is there something which we should actually tell the child and send the child to exam?
Yes, so do your best and I'll be waiting for you with a smile, irrespective of how you do.
Okay. What is it that we should not, as a parent, say to a child?
Score more marks, score 100%. The boy next door always scores 100%. You scored 99 last time. This time I expect 100 from you.
That's something which probably the
Yes,
that's very true.
Yes.
So, is there anything that a child should do before an exam, before going to an exam or before even starting the paper? We could look at two scenarios. One is leaving home, and the second thing is, before the child starts to take an exam.
So I would go a day before the exam.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's extremely important,
yes.
Yeah, a day before the exam. So suppose there's a competitive exam, in fact, I'll say a couple of days before, please find out where your center is. How much time does it take for you to reach that center? How are you going to reach the center? Are you going to go on your own vehicle? Are you going to go by metro? Are you going to go by a bus? So please find out. So it's very, very important to know the place, because there should not be any tension on the day of the exam trying to figure out how to reach. So that I would say that's extremely important as far as competitive exams or board exams, when the exam is not in your own school. Now, just a day before the exam, the first thing which you need to do is to get things ready for the next day. Like your pencils, your pen, your rubber, your scale. Because there should not be, oh, Amma, where is my rubber? Where is my scale? I kept it here, I kept it there. And your school uniform is ready, So these things, preparation, what do you need for the next day? If you're giving a board exam, your, that roll number card, everything should be kept ready. So that's, so that you're organized and you're prepared for the next day. In fact, go to that extent also and ask your mom, what are you going to cook for the next day? So if she's cooking something which you don't light. You don't want to stand on the negative.
Very important.
Yes. So, you could kind of
Many
discuss.
children even forget to hydrate themselves.
Exactly. So food, like we say, even breakfast is so very important because it's breaking the fast. So that is what breakfast is all about. And if you're low on glucose or energy in the morning, then you can even have a syncope or a fainting attack, which is in fact the most common cause, and they miss their breakfast. So breakfast is extremely important, and it's better not to have bonda and bhaji, which kind of slows down the body metabolism. Good to have a light, breakfast like maybe idli, uppit, not too much of oil, and have a breakfast which is light and easily digestible. So go to that extent and discuss so that you're all set for the next day. Then sit down and see how many hours do you have to study and how many chapters do you intend to read, because you cannot read the whole syllabus, especially in higher classes. You can't read whole. So you should have already done this planning that on the last day, one day before the exam, I'm going to read only these many chapters, maybe give half an hour per chapter. And I'm going to read for this number of hours, making sure that I sleep for at least 8 hours. So that is important. Some children also go to the extent of, going out for music or, doing their dance. That's quite okay if you're comfortable with it, going out to play. That's also fine. Absolutely fine. Just as I'm talking, I'm remembered of an incident when my son told to me just before the 10th standard exam, there was half an hour and he got ready earlier. He had his maths paper and he said, Amma, can I go and cycle? And I was like, if he falls down from and he fractures or something like that. I looked at him and he said, Amma, are you serious? Because I'm not serious. Eventually he did go for his cycling and I said, okay, cycle safe, wear the helmet and go, but cycle safe. So, things like that are important. Sometimes a child herself or himself expresses the need. So in the morning, get up at least 1 hour before the exam, I would say. Yeah. Just don't go in a jet lag situation to get on the bed. Just go for the exam, have a bath, do yourself. And if you do your prayers, excellent way, again, to relax. I would definitely recommend that the people who really pray in the morning and, do a little bit of meditation, that's also very, very good. And go in a positive mode and tell yourself, I have done my best and I will do my best. Tell yourself a positive statement. Another important tip is don't reach too early to the exam center. Because if you reach too early, then you will spend a lot of time with your friends discussing things and then you may get unnerved. Oh, I've not read this. They have read this. This is going to come in the exam. So try to be with those friends who are very affirming and who are very positive and who would probably give you 1 or 2 last minute tips but will not unnerve you. So that is before the exam. You enter the exam room, sit down, get your things in place, maybe make a small prayer or your favorite mantra or shloka. If that helps you to study better, definitely go for it, I would say. And just, like I said, blank out for 2 or 3 minutes. And then when you get the exam paper, the first thing to do is to time it. Very, very important. So simple things, suppose you have 60 minutes, 5 mains, 10 minutes for each main and 10 minutes for revision. You must time your paper. Of course, it is variable if it's an MCQ type, if it's a long answer type. I'm sure as you go into the higher classes, you will learn. And if you can do this timing the paper, in your exams and in your preparatory exams which you have done, it's a very good technique to develop. So in your final exam, you will not have a problem. As I said before, when you get stuck, jog your memory, do the quick relaxation exercises anytime you feel that there's a blank out. Please remember to revise your paper. And I often tell them, play a double role. When you're writing the paper, you are a student. When you're checking the paper, you are a teacher. And you say, oh, this student must have made some mistake. Let me again analyze this paper very, very critically.
Right.
So do that. After the exam, if you have an exam the next day, please no postmortems. Don't sit down and start analyzing with your parents or with your friends. I did this question wrong, you did that question wrong. So that can be done after all the exams are over. And start preparing for the next exam. Because what has been done has been done. You cannot change it. So these are some of the tips, and when you get your results, if you're happy, enjoy, celebrate. And if you don't get what you thought you would, remember that your effort was not that good, but that doesn't mean in any way that you are a failure. And always remember the bicycle story. When you were trying to learn the bicycle, how many times you fell down and still you decided to learn it. So just remember that. Don't do well, there's always another chance. So always remember that this is not the last exam that you're going. Just it's one of the milestones in your life. It is not the final milestone.
Right.
There's
Very,
always a
very
chance to do
important.
it's definitely a chance to do well. And especially for board exams, people often get overwhelmed by the results. I would also say that there's always a chance of a recheck. There are people who just decide to end their life because they have failed, and when we have done a recheck later, found that they've actually passed.
True.
So always remember, in that high emotional state, please calm down for some time, talk to little people, maybe even take a break, as I said, even do a little prayer, and then think about what you need to do, even though if you're not scored well.
And there's always the next time to take this exam.
Yes,
Just
yes.
few months and then
Yes,
you can take
definitely. I would say just, take a break, push the pause button before you think about the next time.
Right. What's one myth about exam stress or studying that you wish every parent would stop believing?
Study all day without a break. Don't sleep. The more you study, the more marks you will get.
And people are very proud, when they say that, oh, my child studies till 4 a.m. and then goes and writes exams. So they're very proud of it. That's a total myth.
The absolute myth.
True. Yeah. What's the most common advice you give to parents that always seem to click with them? Which is that advice?
Be there for your child. Often parents say, my child is so grown up, and yet he's in 12th standard, doctor, yet he wants me to be there. I said, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, he is 12th standard. You want him to be independent eventually, but if he feels the need that you should be there, be there. Just be there. Just having somebody around and just sharing sometimes makes a big deal of difference. No, you want them to be independent. That's okay, and they will eventually be independent with your love and support. Always.
They probably would not even need you there then, when they grow up and on their own.
Yes. Be there for them.
And coming to your stress management skills, what's your favorite way to unwind after a long day of helping stressed out parents and kids? How do you unwind?
Well, that's a good question, actually. Oh, well, I have my parents who stay with me, so I like to talk with them. I like to talk with my husband. We often go for a walk in the evening, and we discuss about things that have happened during the day.
That's very nice. Now I have one last question. Is there any memorable, success story of a child who's actually you have helped the child? I'm sure you've helped hundreds and thousands of children and parents already. But then, is there any success story that you actually remember that the child went through such a crisis during exams and stress during that, and then has come back all shining?
Okay, so there are a number of stories. Let me just kind of pick up. So I'll remember this story because this child came, in fact, not a child any longer, an adult who's now gone to the States for doing the PhD. He came with a big bouquet of flowers, and he said, do you remember me? So I actually had a tough time because he was all grown up with a big beard and so yes. So the story of this child was he was a late issue. His parents were quite old when he was born, and he was in the 11th standard, and he was already on antidepressants for depression. And somehow he was not able to study better in spite of him not come out of his depression, and tended to be very moody and not able to study. So I had a talk with him, and he told me that he gets really upset when his elderly parents now often fight with each other. Okay. And that was a very distressing thing for him. So the moment I come home, all I can hear is, and I just don't like it. This really puts me off. I cannot concentrate. I feel I am to be blamed because sometimes they're fighting over me, that our son is not doing well because of you, and they're blaming each other. So I had to talk with the parents. And I just said, I'm not a marriage counselor, right? So I'm an adolescent health specialist. I often, I kind of, refer them to a marriage counselor when they have an issue. Many of the times they don't go, to tell you very frankly. So these parents also refuse to go. Then I said, okay, if this is what you can't, you can't go to a marriage counselor. I know you have issues, but can you postpone your fights to a time when your son is not at home? And at least in front of him, if you can't be very affectionate and loving, at least not have those fights. Be neutral. Somehow they listen. Sometimes, parents will listen to what you say. And I didn't see this child actually for a couple of months. Then he came back again with a box of sweets when he passed his 11th standard. He came back in the 12th standard also with a box of sweets. And I asked him, how are things? And he said, well, they continue to quarrel, but I have learned how to cope with the skills which you have taught me. So I said, great. And again, I had a talk with the parents. Again, that typical advice, because he was starting to prepare for his IIT entrance and all. So they did listen again. He went through IIT and now he's doing his PhD in US.
Very nice. This is really inspiring.
Yes.
I think, it's a
yes.
very good. It's very important to keep the atmosphere. We probably didn't.
Yes, we don't. But then
that we don't really think much about it. But what goes around the child inside the house when the child is studying or focusing on something is absolutely important.
Yes,
right?
It's not only about the child. It's, as you said correctly, the harmony between the parents plays a big role even in their academic achievements.
Yes.
So very important.
Yeah, that's very nice. It was wonderful speaking to you, Dr. Galgali. I'm sure that you have given children a lot of tips to actually cope with their exams, and I think for parents as well on how do they go around the child, because this topic is something which every now and then keeps coming up, and it's not just about exams, right? There's a lot about it's the future of the child, and I think we, like you said, we as parents have to be with the child. That's very, very important.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful speaking to you. That is all we have for today. I'm sure you've all got wonderful tips as parents and as children as well. Please do remember, breathe. Breathe and everything is going to be okay. All is well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Dr. Galgali.